If you think you're going to be single forever, you must watch this video. I'm really excited to have a returning guest in the house, Tara, who we interviewed about 8 months ago, and she's got her beau with her, Dave. So welcome to our podcast, our video.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good to see
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for those that might remember, I had Tara on, I think it was about 8 months ago, give or take. And quickly on the backstory, I actually met Tara on a dating site, I guess about a year ago, give or take, a little over a year ago. And she happens to live in the same city I live in. And we exchanged a couple of emails and we had talked about getting together. But for whatever reason, I was out of town and she was out of town and something happened. And by the time we reconnected, it turns out she met somebody, and that being Dave. So she said, hey, I'm the kind of person that only really dates one person at a time. And I'm like, I totally respect that. And I was like, I'm happy for you. And by the way, Tara had watched my videos as well, or had known of me beforehand. The reason why I'm sharing this is about 4 months after that, I'd been walking along the beach and I see Tara walking towards me with Dave. And what struck me, and I'm going to tell you something to the both of you. I had a visceral feeling. I could see Tara looking at Dave with such adoration. I mean, just absolute adoration. And there was just something about the way she was touching him. And because I do this for a living, I pick up on this kind of stuff. And I immediately got home and I said, I have to message her to make sure. And I happen to have your phone number, messaged you and said, hey, remember me kind of thing. And next thing you know, she was on my podcast, and like I said, that was 8 months ago. And we said, hey, let's do a follow-up with your relationship. So that's giving the backstory to everybody. How's it feel hearing that, Dave?
It feels like yesterday. It feels like a year ago. And the beautiful thing is I still get that look and I give that look. Every day I'm so grateful and blessed and just full of gratitude. And we'll get into this, Jonathan, kind of the backdrop on how we met. But I call it the one in a billion story. It's quite remarkable to me. And but yeah, it's been the best year of my life.
Well, then let's get into it. So why don't you share with everybody how you met? Because and let me just preface this first. I would say that the dating pool, particularly in the midlife category, which is whom I speak to, is the over 40 crowd. There's a lot of fear out there, a lot of frustration, a lot of dating burnout. And there's this belief that I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. And the reason why I wanted to have the two of you on is to say, good couples are happening all the time. And I want to encourage remembrance of that. So maybe you can share how the two of you met and how it got started.
Sure. I'll dive into that. And,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, like where I was personally, I was on the online rounds for a while, and I had minimal success. It was kind of hit and miss, and I decided around that time just to I had this weird fantasy of maybe I'll meet the right woman at Trader Joe's as I'm buying some oranges or something. You know what I mean? I don't have to do anything, and there she is, and we hit it off and talk about oranges.
Yeah,
but that never happened. But I was in a spot mentally, Jonathan, where I was hopefully optimistic, maybe not, the right one will come. But I wasn't actively online. I was focusing at that point on my kids and my running and my health and work, and just it really wasn't on the radar. But I intuitively always was hoping that I might meet that person at Trader Joe's, per se, that example. But I ended up going to a spiritual center and a little workshop on communication. And I love this story to this day. But I get there early, and a lot of open chairs and seats, and I end up saving 2 seats out of a lot of open seats. And And as people filed in, what I noticed is we're getting ready to start. Tara happened to, she was with some girlfriends, and she happened to pick the seat right next to where the seat I saved.
Okay.
Which I'm like, at the time I was like, oh, okay. So I go up and, introduce myself, sit down and introduce myself, look her in the eye. And I don't want to call it like love at first sight, but when we made contact and we exchanged hellos, there was a very gripping, like almost like a trance. It was I've never had it in my life. I was very captured by the eye contact. And then we talked for about 10 minutes prior.
Okay.
And it just flowed. It was a beautiful conversation. It was just, where do you live? What are you doing here? And during the entire presentation, looking at the speaker, I could barely move. I was like, I could feel an energy, and now I'm kind of getting into like meditation and a little more spiritual endeavors. But at that point, I was very much a newbie. But this was very prolific, very profound, very, and I could barely move. And at the end of the seminar, we're talking, and Tara goes, hey, I might be going to another one of these. Would you like my number? I was going to ask for her number. She gave me.
Wow. Whoa. I have to stop right here. So, because that's a bold move, Tara, to like offer your number. So what was going on inside of you in that moment? Because this is really juicy now. I like this.
So I do have to say that prolific sense of when I met David, it was like this instant energy. I had never had that experience with anyone either. And the first thing he said to me, he put out his hand and he said, "Hi, I'm David." And I started to laugh.
Okay.
Because my ex-husband's name is David, and my toxic relationship person's name was David. And I just was busting up, and he's like looking at me, and I'm like, of course, of course you're David. Yeah. And I had this image or this feeling like a month before we met. I just feel like I'm going to meet another David. It was just a feeling I had. But anyway, so I was laughing, but I had that same gripping experience of just this energy field. It's almost like I felt like I was in quicksand, and then he started the workshop, and it was just like all wah, 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 wah. Like I didn't hear anything that was going on. All I was aware of was just this energy that I felt from him, and it was like I was comatose.
Yeah.
But to get to your point, at the end of the thing, I knew, I sat through that whole seminar just, knowing that, what is this energy? Who is this person? At the end of it, I think I said something like, let me give you my number.
Okay.
Because I didn't want, I got a very clear message. Do not let this evening end, and you're going to have regrets if you don't give your number. So I'm so glad that I did. It was just instinctual. Yeah.
But you were reading his mind because he was going to give it to you anyway.
Yeah, I felt that. I felt that was going to happen. Yeah. So I just decided to Yeah.
And I felt the same way. I was like, I cannot let this woman get away with at least this, offer my number. Granted, I got Tara's. I didn't know, status, if she was married or in a relationship or what the deal was, but I just knew intuitively this is something I need to pursue. I'd like to pursue. And
well, it's interesting because I'm sure there are many stories, and maybe you've experienced it yourself, where you had a missed opportunity. And most of the time, those are usually, it was just a glance, just a moment, just a second. Whereas the two of you were in a completely different type of environment beside just you were sitting next to each other, but you actually had something to talk about, because you could have talked about the seminar. You could have talked about something that was said in there. So it really created the opportunity for you guys to be in this, container of connection. So, okay. So let's take it after the phone call. How long did he wait to call you?
Well, that was the cool part. It was like there was an accidental text right after the event. So
Okay.
I got home and it was the very next day. In fact, I was with my friends at the beach having breakfast, and I went to the restroom and I saw a missed call at 10 in the morning.
Okay.
And I was so excited, like I couldn't wait for the breakfast. It turned out he was running
Okay.
at the beach, and I was there with my girlfriends having breakfast, and we had just gone on our 5 mile walk. And I was so excited there was a missed call, and so immediately after the breakfast ended, I just called him back. I'm like, hey, and we just started talking, and the beach was so crowded that day. It took me
Okay.
like an hour to get out of the parking lot. We just started just talking like we had known each other forever.
Okay.
And then
So,
he went right to asking me out, like,
well, that's where I was going to go next. Okay. So
Yeah.
from that moment of when you met and then he asked you out and then when you went out, let's go through that timeline real quick.
That's the next day.
the very next day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like we met, we had the conversation, right? And then you're like, "What you want to go to dinner tomorrow night?" And then we met in the village
So-
the next night.
Let me ask you, and I'm going to dive into something you weren't. By the way, folks, they have no idea what I'm going to ask. I mean, for the most part, I do this spontaneously. But it occurs to me because you met in Redondo Beach. I'm giving away where we live. Please forgive me. At a spiritual center. There was probably some built-in familiarity there. Like, I mean, we have and I'm saying this because I feel the same way, and I go to the same center on occasion, is that there's this kind of built-in familiarity, a built-in of like, I feel a little bit safer than a total stranger kind of thing. I suspect you had that feeling going on between the two of you. Does that remotely feel accurate?
I think I think we had a feeling of familiarity. I don't know that it had anything to do with geography or where we lived.
Okay.
I knew that I was very excited. I had sort of reached a place in my dating and my life and everything. It's like, you know what? I want everything to be within 10 minutes
Yeah.
of where I live. Because I moved back to the South Bay. I grew up here, and I was
Okay.
like, I was so tired of all the online dating and let's meet halfway and
Yeah.
all that. And I'm just
Same.
like, you know what? If the person doesn't live within 10 minutes, I'm not interested. And I know that's a far call because it's so challenging.
There's only 3 people on the dating sites that live within
right?
10 minutes of
Like,
us.
how is this possibly going to happen? And it turned out that we were both online at the same time, but because of the age parameters and stuff, he didn't come up on my searches. So yeah, but
Oh, well, now we got to talk about that.
all right.
That laugh is devious, Jonathan.
Well, the thing is what, because you probably didn't go below, if I don't mind sharing your guys' ages, and I can keep that private too.
That's fine.
Dave is younger than you.
Yes, he is.
For all those women that complain men are seeking younger women, he's got a slightly older woman than himself. So you guys wouldn't have come up in the algorithm. I get that. So let's go back to the date. So you talked the next day, you planned a date. From the time you met, when was the date?
The date was that evening. So we talked.
Oh, okay.
Maybe like 11 or 12 in the afternoon, and then made reservations for 6 p.m. right in Redondo.
Okay.
So it just felt right. I was like, I want to spend more time with this woman. So the phone call we had was over an hour. It's one of those calls that maybe some can identify with this, but it was like an hour call that felt like a minute. And flowed. Everything's flowed since. But that evening went out to dinner at HT Grill and kind of the same thing.
You know what? I was going to say, did you go to HT Grill?
Right? Yeah. Had to get the salmon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we both ordered the same thing.
Oh, that's cute. So
but it was just like a flow state. It was just a connection. It was hard to explain. It was just like I didn't feel any of the like, let's wait, just from the second I said, let me give you my number. It was just comfortable. you know?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Tara, and Dave, I think you implied that you're kind of new to kind of personal development, self-help, spirituality. Was that I thought you referenced something along that
Yeah,
lines, right?
embarking on with Tara, diving into meditation practices
Okay.
and more communication classes. But yeah, it's something that I was just kind of the tip of the iceberg at that point.
So, and Tara, I know you're fully immersed in it. I mean, whether we could talk about, Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza, all those types of people, and certainly even going to the Center for Spiritual Living is is a is a unique place because it's really centered around, I believe, living a life of not just integrity, but really in a realm of really connecting to something more divine than ourselves, our higher self, that sort of thing. And the reason why I bring this up is because the way you're sharing your story, you're really talking about being in flow. You're talking about really, it's not like you had to force, you weren't doing you just never, like, making excuses. You just never know, going, oh, well, I didn't like this. It sounds like you didn't feel an ick. Thank God. You didn't have to talk yourselves into it, which a lot of times people are feeling this way. And what you're describing is being in flow, or at least that's the way I'm receiving it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it. And I should say that in prior relationships and in dating, I never really experienced that flow state. And that's why I kind of have to pinch myself, because now here we're on the cusp of our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
And that is how the entire relationship has gone. And there's no worrying or stressing or fretting or anticipating what is he thinking. There's just this flow state.
Yeah.
And it's really a beautiful. I've been in a perpetual state of peace for the last year of my life, my 55th year on this planet. And I'm like, wow, this feels really good to just be in a flow state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about your past relationship experience for either one of you, but I know that I've been in dynamics where I have felt uncertainty, unease, and there's the natural differences people have. I mean, I suspect you guys aren't perfectly aligned. I mean, maybe one of you puts the forks down and the other one puts the forks up in the dishwasher. And by the way, it is down. I'm just kidding. So, and navigating differences is part of it too. It's not all, rainbows and roses type of thing. So would you be open to kind of diving into where you two might butt a little bit against each other, where it doesn't feel like a state of flow? And I'm not talking about a drag down fight, kind of thing, but just where you bump up against edges, and how you navigate that. That's really where I wanted to go with that. Speaking of communication.
Well, I can honestly say we haven't had like a major argument or anything like that.
Okay.
But what happens for us is when there is like discomfort or agitation or something is going on, what I really love about David is he comes to me.
Okay.
In my other relationships, I always felt like, what the heck is going on in my partner's head?
Yeah.
Living a whole entire life of wondering, what are they thinking? What's going on in there? With David, from the very get, when he was agitated about something or something was on his mind or not sitting right with him, he would just come to me and he would tell me about it. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're coming to me. And then, we would just talk about it. And he really led in that arena. And I'm just like, wow, this is so different to be with somebody who just comes forward and says, how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so that enabled me to really like do the same thing too, and so we haven't like had any major arguments or anything like that, but we have had like, hey, and then we talk through it.
So, well, that's kind of, it's, again, I wasn't trying to incite anything, but more just the recognition that, and what you're describing. And the reason why I wanted to touch upon this, particularly because men get a bad rap, that we're emotionally unavailable, emotionally constipated, commitment phobic, and that sort of thing. And yes, there are plenty of men like that exist. And by the way, there's equally as many women who are the exact same way, just a different version of it. So, how does it feel to, like you just were describing, what it felt like to experience something that it sounds like you really didn't before in a container of a romantic relationship. So here's my question. Dave, what makes you different? What about you got you there?
Yeah, and first, I'll before I answer that, I'll answer two questions I saw in the chat. I'm from Iowa.
Okay.
So there's that, and yes, we're a few, less than 10 minutes apart. So
okay, got it.
But what got me here, and it took years of self-discipline, self-improvement on my end.
Okay.
Learning to love myself and to take care of myself, because we both came from codependent relationships. This one is 100% co-committed, and it took me, I had to grow up. I had to, I was out of shape, and I couldn't even run 3 minutes. I'm running, a couple marathons a year.
Good for you.
3 years. But it took growing up, and in this relationship we have kind of an open door policy, and Tara's been so amazing about this. Is like, let it flow, speak your mind, like,
yeah.
And it takes practice, and it takes discipline to do it. But what I've noticed with Tara, I mean, it just flows. Like, I don't want to go to bed at night resentful. I don't want to go to bed with even thinking about little things. It's like, let's just, like, talk about it. This is how I'm feeling. I've learned a lot to talk about how I feel, and it saves so much problematic BS on the back end if you just, address it, present time or at the right time. It's beautiful. It's nice.
Well, there's an interesting thing happens, and let me backtrack for a second. I went through a divorce 20 years ago. I was in my just turned 40, had a couple kids, and I probably, my first 10 years out of my divorce, as much as I said I want a relationship, I wasn't really capable or even ready for a relationship. And I recognized back then I was a train wreck, to be quite honest with you. Not to suggest you were in that category. But I reached a point where I said, I want a relationship. Like, I want commitment. It's not something where I just want occasional companionship, occasional connection, occasional sex. I want something more significant. And as I'm hearing you share this, I'm thinking along the lines, or my question is, was there a moment in your life, a moment where you go, I really want relationship? And then what I really mean is commitment. Did that kind of trigger, was that, I'm assuming that was present before you met, but that might have been a catalyst for you. I'm just curious about that.
There was no defining moment where I woke up and I was like, I want to commit. I've always wanted a partner, someone I can talk to, like a best friend, someone to love and to share the rest of my life with. That's what I've wanted. I truly wasn't seeking, like you had mentioned, like partial this, partial that.
Yeah.
I've always wanted that. I envision us when we're 80, traveling in New Zealand or something like that. I've always wanted that. I knew that inevitably the right person would come, but it's in the universe's control. It's kind of gave it to God.
There you go. Really quickly, while you just on that note, really quickly, for those It's time for Q&A. So, folks, if you have a question for either of them or myself, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the money's, there's a little dollar sign in the chat box. All the money's from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him there with his brother, Colin. He's my son who passed away almost 7 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and scholarships to coaching as well. So we'd appreciate your love. And again, please ask questions. We want to, this helps create the conversation. So just remember to write the word question and post the question thereafter. So while we're waiting for questions, one question did come up. They did ask what your ages are. And then I did post it. So if that's okay.
That's fine. I'm 55. And
So,
he's 49.
Yeah. So, and like coming back to what I said earlier, guys aren't always looking for the younger woman. In fact, by the way, really quickly, my last two relationships, both of them were older than me. So, all right. So you got past, we talked about the first date. I'm sure at some point the two of you were intimate together. When did you guys have that conversation that this is something serious?
That's a good one. Well, I remember when we first started dating, we were able to see each other every day because we lived so close. And
yeah,
I was on summer break. I'm a teacher.
Okay.
And so we would see each other every day. And then he was traveling and I was traveling. So we just sort of made a commitment to, I said, hey, you know, I'll stay in touch every day. I'll FaceTime or whatever. And so we kind of communicated back and forth. And then probably, I don't know, like a month into it or something, you said something like, oh, you kind of occupy like some real estate in my heart, or
oh, God, how romantic.
dude,
It's
and
a
I'm
little
like,
piece of real estate.
yeah, he's like, you have real
It's like a
estate.
condo,
I'm
but-
like, okay, you know, and then I don't know what happened.
It just kind of opened up from there. I mean, we were walking and talking, and I remember this. I was like, "Hey, you know, do you want to come out for Christmas to Iowa with me?" This was like a month into it, and she's like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And I was like, "You know, yeah." Mom
So-
and Dad were there.
Really quickly, now some would, okay, I have a feeling some might hear that you saw each other every day. And I know for some people that are still in the dating marketplace going, oh my God, that seems like so much. But I get the sense
It's
that,
very casual because we lived
Yeah.
so close. Like I
Yeah.
said, 10 minutes away. It was like, hey, you want to walk, you know, go down to the beach for a walk. So
Yeah.
we did a morning beach walk, which is what I do normally. So it was just like,
Yeah.
hey, you want to go? So that led to that natural flow state that I was talking about, which goes back to your question of the familiarity with geography. It was just like, hey, this is my normal routine. You want to join? It wasn't like, you know, like setting up formal dates. It just
hanging out.
It just-
really.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
and it wasn't
quite
for a long
frankly,
period of time, just like an
Yeah, but
hour.
you just pointed out something, you know, I know, you know, hanging out gets a bad rap for a lot, you know, a lot of people because they think there's no effort. But how you get to know someone is when you hang with them, you know, to some degree. You can get to know them, you know, in a less formal environment. So I'm happy to hear that. By the way, we do have a question from RM Bells. And she asks, are the families getting to know each other? And sorry if I missed it, but do they live together? Okay, so we have two questions there. Have the families gotten to know each other?
Most definitely, yes.
Yeah.
I met Tara's kids. Her mom's amazing. Love her.
Aw,
And Tara's met my folks. They're back in the Midwest. And
Okay.
my kids love Tara, love her mom. It just flowed. Again,
Yeah.
it's just like the integration of kids, especially. You want to be very cognizant that.
how old are your kids, Dave?
My son is 11. My daughter is 15. She'll be 16.
Okay.
And
Tara,
my
you're,
kids are up and
We're-
out. They're 22 and 21.
yeah. So, well, that's an interesting dynamic. So, Dave, you're still actively parenting, where Tara teaches young kids. You're being a teacher, I meant to say. Has that caused any conflict as far as spending time together, anything like that?
Well, that's the ironic thing about all this. The way we're talking about the flow state, I spend more time with David than I have with any other person in any other relationship because of our schedules and the way that jives in terms of, you know, when he has the kids and when we try to
Okay.
make time. It just, we have a lot of time together, which has been, I think, really the key of why the relationship solidified early, because we had lots of regular. You have to, one thing I've learned, you have to spend time with the person.
Yeah.
Time with the person, not just like, you know, every Saturday date or whatever, to really know somebody. And it's just, I never would have imagined. I mean, quite honestly, when I thought about like, okay, I'm dating somebody who's still parenting, like one of the things that I had in my head was, you know, I want someone that had their kids are already up and grown. And that's another point that I really want to communicate.
Yeah.
These parameters that we think that we have in our mind of what we want in a relationship is not necessarily the case. It's been so gratifying and so wonderful getting to know David's kids and really, you know, and I never would have imagined, like, that was like, no, you know, I've been there, done that, you know, my kids are older, and that is far from the case. I would have shut out. I mean,
well, I'm sorry, you know, something I do talk about frequently is that proximity builds continuity. In other words, when you like, so the reason, like if he lived in Anaheim, you know, compared to where we live and he has kids and stuff like that, it would have been problematic to be able to spend time together, not because of the kids, but because of logistics and all the things associated with a person's life. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of really recognizing, can my lifestyle fit into this person's lifestyle? At least have some awareness around that before you jump on the chemical bandwagon, because then it becomes more complicated to detach when there's a misalignment. Sorry, I was just obviously doing a teaching lesson there. Annika is in the house. Annika has a question. Was there a particular mindset that you believed helped you manifest this lovely relationship? Ooh, I love that one. Tara, this is your bailiwick.
A particular mindset. Well, I can say that I honestly always believed and felt inside that I was going to meet my person. I always had that belief and that hope. But so the mindset, maybe the mindset was, I'm never going to give up on that belief.
Okay.
Although I did feel like just before I met Dave, I'm like, I think I'm ready to check on out of this whole dating thing. I was just like, you know, I felt relatively good about my life and who I was and all that. And then I'm just like, you know, if it's not meant to happen for me, maybe it's not. But my bandwidth was running out. But what never ran out was the hope and the belief that I would eventually meet the right person.
Well, it sounds like, and by the way, I totally mirror what you just shared, and I'm grateful that you shared that with everyone. I get the sense, though, Dave had this kind of a knowing he was going to be in a relationship. Like there was, at least when you shared earlier, like you wanted it. So not like you were going after it like your marathon, you know, to get to the finish line per se, but there was this, I know I want this.
I knew I wanted it, and I knew it would present itself at the right time. At the stage I was in, Jonathan, I was, you know, the online dating and all that was like very hit and miss.
Yeah.
And I was happy with, you know, hanging out with the kids, going to the beach and running and, you know, doing great at work and all that good stuff. You know, and deep down, I had that Trader Joe's kind of, you know, like this, it could happen like this.
Yeah.
But that's why I say this is like, it's beautiful. It's like a 1 in a billion kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just on how we met. Now, what I do want to emphasize is,
Yeah.
I don't think both of us would have hit it off the way we did if we both weren't like healthy emotionally,
Yeah.
physically, spiritually. I don't think I would be capable of being the man that I am right now. And that took prior years' work. I know Tara spent a lot of time doing that, but to ultimately answer your question, yeah, I knew deep down she was out there. And it was just, just, I guess a little action, like put myself in a situation where I normally wouldn't go to a communications workshop.
Actually, let's talk about that. So I was just leading, that's where I was going to go next. So do you recall what inspired you to go to that? Like, was it out of the blue, or was it like you're a regular there or something like that?
It was out of the blue. I had a buddy that I knew outside of work, and he was like, hey, we're talking about something. He just mentioned it. Okay. And this was weeks before, and I kind of took it and dismissed it. And it was like kind of lingering in my mind, and I looked online and and I just decided to get out of my comfort zone and try it out. And so that's how that transpired.
Do you guys remember any particulars from that workshop? I'm just kind of curious now. Like, did anything stand out about communication that?
Well, it was a nonviolent communication workshop. But then we took a subsequent workshop, which is actually on your book list. I think you have do you have the conscious loving book on your list, Jonathan?
I've got conscious uncoupling. I've got calm. I've got like.
We went to another workshop on that, and it was fabulous. We really got a lot out of that. We read the book together. Okay. And yeah.
Did you guys ever read 8 Dates?
I did. Yes, I did.
Okay.
That's another thing that we did. Remember, babe?
Oh, yeah.
We did those first 8 dates.
I've never done anything like that before.
Dave's like, what? Okay.
Like, what am I getting myself into here?
By the way, Dave, I'll share something that I share with my audience frequently, and please forgive me for the graphics here. But I'm a big proponent of this book. If nothing else, chapter 1 is about trust and commitment. And whether you do this with a partner or not, I'm inviting everyone to read this book, particularly about trust and commitment. And I'm like, and Tara might have heard me say this in videos, I'm like, ladies, before that penis ever goes inside the vagina, you have to read this book, and ideally read it with somebody. Because, and why I say it, and I'm doing the graphic just to illustrate a point. It sounds to me the way the two of you entered into your relationship was very grown up. Mm-hmm. It was a grown up version of relationship, and sadly, we operate still as a bunch of 20-year-olds operating on physical attraction, entertainment, romance, physical connection as being the driver of the bus, and not really what it's in the fact that you met at a communication workshop. And it sounds like you've subsequently gone to a couple others as well, which I want to touch upon in a second. This is what I'm advocating over and over and over again, because I just feel as though, and again, I'm giving a speech here. If we operate from a naive place, we're just going to be, what's the definition of insanity? You're going to end up right back where you were. So that's why I'm such a big advocate for that.
Doing the 8 dates was a really good catalyst in the beginning of our relationship.
Okay.
And Dave was so willing to he's like, okay, send me the stuff. And then I would send it to him. And what I really appreciated, he would like, I knew that he was reading it, and he's like, let me set up date 1, let me, it was like, I would give him the information and he would just say yes. And those 8 dates were, in the first, 8 weeks of our relationship.
Yeah. Okay. We kicked off with that right away. And at first I was like, what is this? And then once we kind of got into it, I loved it. I just said yes.
Planning the next ones. He was like, we have to do date 3. You know, we have to do. And I was like,
I
oh,
loved,
he's getting into this.
it was cool.
Yeah.
It was one of the best things we've done. It was awesome. It was, I mean, it really instilled the foundation to the relationship right there.
By the way, Sassy says Tara and Dave have a positive vibe between them. I found it funny how she met Dave with her ex being Dave. And Dave too.
Yeah.
I joked to myself about my ex's names and guys I met in the same name. Actually, coincidentally, my ex-girlfriend, who's a dear friend of mine, Sherry, she's had like 4 Daves in her life too. There's something. What is it about Dave? You know, or David?
1 out of 6, there's a good one. You know? Statistically, what I've read.
But you know what? Everybody's already commented, and they see the energy between the two of you. There's this vibe the two of you have, and it kind of reminds me of when I saw the two of you walking. There's something about the two of you that is inspirational, and you and I had a conversation before we got started talking about hope, and I want to kind of lean back into that, because even you, Tara, said you kind of got to the point where you're like, I think I'm done with this method of connecting. And I suspect you were meeting people online mostly. I mean, was this kind of, think about it. Well, actually, now I want to ask you, is this the first organic meeting you've had in quite, you know, since maybe you're.
Yes. Yeah. All my prior dating and everything was always online.
Yeah.
This was in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
You know, we should talk about that for a little. I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I really do believe that there's a gigantic burnout with this medium of connecting. There's a marginalization that happens. There's an exhaustion of, you know, starting a conversation, then the person disappearing, and starting a conversation and disappearing. And God forbid there's distance involved, because then you got to deal with all the logistics and whatnot. And Dave was going, I'm just going to go to Trader Joe's.
It might work.
And by the way, I go to the same Trader Joe's, by the way.
You never know.
You know what? The thing is, for me, though, I don't feel comfortable. Like, believe it or not, first off, my head is down shopping. Like, I only put 1 quarter in the meter because I go in and out in 10 minutes. You know, my head is down because I'm like on a mission when I go to Trader Joe's. I think I need to put 2 quarters in the meter and like spend a little time not worrying about getting a ticket. So someone so where do you think you guys are at now? You're almost a year in. You're coming up on that anniversary. I mean, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable situation, but do you guys talk about the future?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the future. We maintain a mentality of, you know, day by day, and not really get attached to future outcomes. But we've talked about, I mean, I want to spend the rest of my life with this woman. There's no one else. Well, you know that.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you too.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's not a, and I kind of knew that from the get-go in the beginning, and then as you do the dates, and you know, and we've traveled a lot together, and you start putting yourself in outside places that are not your usual stomping grounds, like South Bay, and you get to know the person more. But yeah, I mean, I consider Tara family, and I want to, you know, I want me and my kids and my family to spend the rest of our lives, and how much time that is together. So there's no one else.
Well, you got a good 40 or 50 years left, so or more. My dad lived to be 99, so I always shoot. You know, we all can make it to 100, kind of thing. So, but there's no. I mean, like, do you even talk about living together, or any of that kind of stuff? I mean, I know you have kids at home, so it's probably a little bit complicated from that vantage point.
So, you know, that we spend like 20 of the 30 days in a month in the same bed. You know, and David is still raising his kids.
Yeah.
My kids are up and out. So for the continuity of that, I don't see us merging households while the kids
Okay.
are still, you know,
Okay.
while the kids are still until they're grown. And then at
Yeah.
that time, you know, we
Yeah.
haven't like formally talked about it, but I
Yeah.
think we just have the shared understanding of like, this is so perfect the way that it is, that we're just so appreciative.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think?
with the allowed amount of time we spend together,
Yeah.
we call our places our two homes in
Mhm.
essence.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm in home. This is Tara's place.
Okay.
Then we
Okay.
also have place walking access to the beach, and so it's nice to have two different places, but also a little space is vital.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel that little space makes the relationship stronger. It allows Tara to have her downtime and her, whatever needs to be done, and get her errands, whatever it may be. But just like the space itself is great. We still talk and
Yeah.
and all that every day. But I think as we speak right now, we're just it's flowing so beautifully. We'll just see where this takes us. But right now, cohabitation permanently, probably, when my youngest is off to college and all that stuff, then we can
Well,
look at it.
it's interesting. I met a gentleman about a month or so ago, and I'm, by the way, whenever I meet someone, I'm like, okay, are you in a relationship? I mean, I vet everybody because out of curiosity. And he goes, yeah, I've been in a relationship for 20 years. And I go, I asked about their living, and they go, we live in two separate homes for 20 years. And
Yeah.
now they literally live 5 minutes from each other. So pretty close to the same with you guys. And we were talking about, he was really sharing something. And there's a real value to this, particularly when you do have that logistic proximity, was that having that space for yourself, and having that, you each have that alone time. And I think that's something that we're so, we're indoctrinated in the, aversion of getting married and moving in together and that sort of thing. And that's, I think that's healthy. So I'm just happy to hear. But again, I think a big part of this is the proximity. That really is
That's the key. That's the key, because we have so much quality time together, and
Yeah.
there's proximity, and it's just, and that's why it works so well.
And
Yeah.
one point I want to make, Jonathan,
Yeah.
obviously our space is important and healthy, but respectfully, what trumps that is the kids. I mean, they're
Yeah.
number one, both on Tara's end and my end.
Yeah.
And yes, there are numerous times where Tara or mom, I call her mom, will come over and we'll go out to dinner and all that stuff. That's great. But, my kids love, hanging with me, and we're barbecuing, watching football. And it's like one-on-one time with them. They love it. Or taking my daughter, thrifting, or my son to the beach and stuff like that. So it's like kids are number one in
Yeah. both
of this. But, it's a beyond a blessing to have a 8-minute commute to beautiful.
It's 8 minutes.
Yeah.
If you drive a little too fast.
I can't wait to get here.
I can make it to the village in 5, and I'm over at the pier. I'm just kidding. So let's hear what Tony says. Did either of you go through a time of having to rebuild life and start over?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So I'm divorced.
Yeah.
And so I had to rebuild my life and start over.
Yeah.
And then I was in a subsequent relationship that was a toxic, unhealthy relationship. I had to rebuild and start over. I had to rebuild and start over, almost like Humpty Dumpty, putting myself back together piece by piece. I mean, there was a whole evolution, and both of us share that story. I had to, I shed 100 pounds 15 years ago.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so coming into physical fitness, coming into emotional fitness, spiritual fitness, all that's been such a journey. But absolutely, I mean, I had to go through some very, very, very dark times in my life, many times to come to finally come into the light.
Okay. How about you, Dave?
not that deep. They're experiences, but yeah, I mean, post divorce, I was out of shape. I mentally was in a bad spot, and it was a wake up call for myself to either rise to the top and be a good dad and get your stuff together, or not. And so that's where I decided to get back into marathon running. Was instrumental in my transformation, with a lot of healthy habits that go along with that in terms of discipline and training. And then that opened up doors into wanting to learn more on spirituality, meditation, God, a good reading good books, and just being a good dad. And that
well, I believe you shared, or Tara, I think you shared this before we went live. I think you said you both felt like you were in a good place, like being in a good place. And you met each other in that space. And that's not to say that you have to be in a good place to find a person, because, I think it's about the two of you really met each other where you were at, not where you were individually at, but you accepted each other where you're at. And that speaks volumes to presence, awareness, desire, care. I mean, I could go through alliteration of different, adjectives here, but it sounds, coming back to, and why people keep seeing the spark between the two of you, they see the energy between the two of you, because you really meet each other, like in every facet.
The thing that is so different about this relationship is, I think, the state that we were in when we both met each other. I don't believe in this. Oh, you have to be 100% whole to be able to be in a relationship. I think you become, like, in a relationship, you finally able to really see your wholeness. But yeah, we were both in good places where, I think I mentioned that John Grace always said that when you find the healthy relationship, it's going to add 10% more to your life. And I'm like, what? I thought 10%? That's like, really? But I think prior, my whole life, I was always looking to the relationship for 50% or more. And that's what I've learned in this last year that we've been together is that there's no part of me that wants to change any part of David. And it's so nice to be like, we're on this journey together. And I was like, I truly want the best for you, but I don't. And it's fun to talk about it and share about it. And likewise, it's like, there's not this need, you know what I mean? It's like, I just truly want the best for you. And it's cool. And I never came into a relationship prior to this without, I would just constantly get the icks all the time. It's just like, but it was not me not being settled in me. And I really realized it was all my own issues and my own stuff that was coming up. And when I finally healed all of that and got, in a good place, then I was able to just appreciate this wonderful person and just genuinely want the best.
Feelings are very mutual.
Okay, so as we're getting to a close, I'm going to throw one more thing at the two of you. I really do believe we, from a spiritual perspective, we choose partners to help us grow from a spiritual level, from an emotional level, from an intellectual level, from a physical level, all of those things. Like, we can be each other's teacher, but not therapist. Let me be clear, only because I've experienced that in my life. One being the therapist and one having them be the therapist for me. How do you help each other grow? I'm curious.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think Tara helps me grow by putting the ball in my court.
Okay.
Which, allows me to kind of take the initiative to grow if there's something painful, to overcome it. And not only that, but also a support system that encourages me
Okay.
to try something new, or it's okay to fail.
Okay.
Just kind of a support system, if that makes
Okay.
sense, to allow myself to grow, and to have a partner to share that growth with.
Yeah.
And Tara comes up with so many ideas. She has so many ideas of things. She had like a million ideas, Jonathan. It would take up another hour. And I've learned to, I mean, I have boundaries, but I've learned to say yes and to kind of go outside of my box, and everything that we've done has induced some type of personal or spiritual growth. Sometimes there's minimal or little growth, but at the end of the day, that's what we're both striving for, is individually to grow, but also collectively.
Okay.
And I think we've done so, we share similar interests, and one of the ways that we grow together is like we like to read the same books together and like dissect them and talk about them.
Okay.
We're just finishing a meditation class that we've been taking, and it's been so good because we just like, David, I have a pool here, and I would get in, and he's like, well, let's swim, and then so he motivates me, and then I think I motivate him, and we just sort of like, so now I jump in the water and we swim together, or we'll meditate together. We're always reading a book. It's kind of like when it started with the 8 dates, we kind of started like a book club together.
Yeah.
And that's helped us grow a lot because we just kind of read together. I mean, I'm a high school teacher, so that's kind of instinctual for me, but we brought those things into our relationship, and it's been cool. It's like, oh, wow, I have a book buddy, and we exercise together.
I'll be candid with you. I love this only because I'm the type of person that loves to dissect and process almost incessantly, and I can be rather exhausting to anyone in my life. But but why I bring this up is because there's not just other shared interests, whether it's whether the food you like or the sports you do or whatever. But I think when you're doing that, like dissecting, and I don't mean it in this negative way, I'm talking about in a way of like curiosity, like what did you think of that, what did you get out of that, like from a place of genuine curiosity about how another views a movie you saw or a book you read or that sort of thing. That's, in my mind, one of the richest parts of a relationship, is where you come, I want to know what you're thinking and how you feel about that. And it seems that the two of you do that mutually.
Yeah, we do. And I knew that when David early in the relationship came, and he would bring these letters that he would write, or these cards he would give me, where he would express what he was thinking or what he was feeling. And I was just like, what, like, we like to do that, right? Like we'll pause when we're reading and start talking about it, or we started journaling together.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, it's just kind of a natural thing. I think I feel most in the flow state when we we do that a lot. Yeah. We're always like expressing and dissecting and yeah.
Well, listen, we're come up on the hour. I can't believe how quickly that came and went.
Yeah.
This has been a treat, not just for me. I truly believe for everyone else. I'm grateful to just be a witness to the two of you. And again, when I saw you walking, I was like, oh, like that's how I really felt that energy between the two of you. Now seeing you together in this format, I just wish you many blessings for the two of you. And thank you for sharing with everyone. This makes a difference in people's lives.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do, and for inviting us in and being part of this journey, and hope to see you soon at Trader Joe's.
Yeah, I'll see you at Trader Joe's or HT Grill. Now I'm going to the Beach Grotto. So, hey, folks, I want to thank those that gave us a super sticker, both Annika and Julianne. Thanks so much for the super sticker. Thanks for everyone that commented, whether it was RM Bells, Jerry, who else commented? Karen, Sassy, Tony, Rita, everybody that commented and asked a question. Thanks so much. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful evening. Be well. Thanks. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.